Test, test, 1, 2, 3, test, test.
I'm going to call to order the Monday, April 17th, 2023 Finance and Budget Committee meeting. Call to order, please, and roll call.
Thank you, Chair. Mayor Pro Tem Lopez.
Here.
Councilmember Hodges.
Here.
Councilmember Shields.
Here.
Chairman DeMauro.
Here. Thank you. Next up, we have the approval of the agenda. Looking for a motion.
Chair.
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes, thank you. I move for approval of the agenda for today's Finance and Budget Committee meeting as presented.
Second.
I have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Lopez, second by Councilmember Hodges for the approval of the agenda. Any discussion on the agenda? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Mayor Pro Tem Lopez.
Aye.
Councilmember Hodges.
Aye.
Councilmember Shields.
Aye.
Chairperson DeMauro.
Aye. Thank you. That's 4 ayes approving the agenda. Next up, public comments. Do we have any public comments we know about?
Chair, we did not have any public comments submitted prior to tonight's meeting, and we do not have any members of the public in attendance.
Okay, thank you. All right, we'll go right into the business portion of the meeting. Approval of the March 6, 2023 Finance and Budget Committee action letter. Looking for a motion. Somebody has one?
Chair.
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem Lopez.
Yes, I move for approval of the March 6th Finance and Budget Committee action letter as presented.
Second.
Thank you. I have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Lopez, a second by Councilmember Hodges, approving the March 6, 2023 Finance and Budget Committee action letter. Discussion, seeing none. Roll call, please.
Mayor Pro Tem Lopez.
Aye.
Councilmember Hodges.
Aye.
Councilmember Shields.
Aye.
Chairperson DeMauro.
Aye. Thank you. That's 4 ayes approving the March 6, 2023 Finance and Budget Committee action letter. Next up, Bill number 23-086, an ordinance approving amendment number 14 to the budget for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2023, as adopted by ordinance number 9441, ordinance 9442, ordinance 9449, ordinance 9450, and ordinance 9451 by amending the authorized expenditures for the city. Rick Gentry, Budget Manager. Thank you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Rick Gentry, Budget Manager. Bill number 23-086 is amendment number 14 to our current FY23 budget. This is what's been commonly called the Capital Projects Rollover Budget Amendment. As we're familiar, many familiar, our CIP projects, it's a plan, it's a 5-year plan, and many of those projects carry over multiple years. And as they do their planning, they budget out their expenses through the planning phase, through the construction phase, and the completion and closure phase of the project. Sometime due to things outside our controls and construction conditions and various other things that the budget money doesn't get spent in 1 year. So we take and roll that budget authority forward to the next year as we move forward with the project. So that's what this budget amendment entails. It's a collection of projects for our street construction, water projects, parks projects, and technology projects. We also have one other item we've rolled into this amendment is we're rolling forward a purchase order, which we've talked about doing this in the future with other purchase orders that are open from 1 year's spending authority to another. The replacement of the generator at Fire Station headquarters. It's about a 1.5 year lead time on that project. So it was a budgeted expense last year, and I think it just got installed recently. So they're just rolling that spending authority forward into this year for that purchase. And with that, if there's any questions.
I don't have any questions per se. Does anybody else? Members? Councilmember Shields, do you have any questions by chance?
No, sir.
Okay. Okay, that's pretty clear then. Anybody have a motion possibly?
Chair,
Yes.
I move to recommend to City Council approval of agenda item number bill number 23-086, an ordinance approving amendment number 14 to the budget for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2023, as adopted by ordinance number 9441, ordinance number 9442, ordinance number 9449, ordinance number 9450, and ordinance number 9451 by amending the authorized expenditures for this city.
Second.
Thank you. I have a motion by Councilmember Hodges, second by Mayor Pro Tem Lopez, moving Bill number 23-086 to the full council with a recommendation of approval. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Mayor Pro Tem Lopez.
Aye.
Councilmember Hodges.
Aye.
Councilmember Shields.
Aye.
Chairperson Tomorrow.
Aye. Thank you. That's 4 ayes, moving Bill number 086 to the full council. Next up, Bill number 23-087, an ordinance approving amendment number 15 to the budget for the fiscal year of June 30, 2023, as adopted by ordinance 9441, 9442, ordinance 9449, ordinance 9450, and ordinance 9451 by amending the full-time equivalents for ITS, Fire, Public Works, and Finance, and the pay and classification plan for the city. Mr. Gentry, again.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. Rick Gentry, Budget Manager. The amendment number 15 to the FY23 budget has two components. One is the pay and classification amendment to that plan and the amendment of some of our FTE plans. There are kind of two components in the pay and classification plan amendment, a portion of the amendment. One is the increasing the pay rate for the police recruit position. Our represented police staff received their pay class plan or their payment plan changed in February this past year, and this is to adjust the recruit payment as well to be more in alignment with that payment schedule increase. And then the other one is the movement of the facilities maintenance superintendent position. When we put the IAM agreement in place last fall, they did some adjustment of those superintendent positions that are relative to the management of the roles and to reduce the compression between pay assignments in the union agreement and the general core staff. So this was just a position that was missed in that adjustment when they made those adjustments. There's no additional pay. It's just moving this position into a new pay band, just giving them more future growth. So no additional cost at this time. For the next part is some FTE adjustments, and the departments are represented here today if you have any questions about specifics. The first one's the ITS. They're requesting to change one of their help desk support specialist positions to a system support analyst position. And they're both both these positions are currently in the same pay band, different job descriptions, but they're in the same pay band, so there's no additional funding requested for those changes, just a request to change from one position to another. The finance department is requesting some flexibility in filling their upper management positions. In the past, the finance department has had a director, and then they've had two assistant director positions. Last fall, the budget amendment number 6, the council gave the authority to have flexibility with filling the controller position with either a controller, assistant director controller, or a deputy director position. Now, a cash and debt position, which is the other assistant position, is open. I'm going to give the director flexibility to stay with the 2 FTEs, but use the deputy director position for either one of those positions, and then assistant director for the corresponding position. So that is the change. So I'm not requesting additional FTEs, but just some flexibility on how to use those positions. Fire department, with the end of the fiscal year coming up, they have a request in with the public safety sales tax to add 13 new positions to the public safety sales tax effective July 1st. They're requesting at this time that we'd add the 13 new positions to the FTE schedule at this time, so they go ahead and start their recruitment and getting staff lined up. So those recruits lined up, so when it comes July, they're able to have those hit the ground running with those new staff members and their next group of recruits. So that's a request for that. So it is part of their planned public safety sales tax budget for FY24. Then the final request is from the Public Works Department operations area. They currently have a .75 administrative assistant position in the office area that's been open probably for about 1.5 to 2 years now, as that person moved across over to Fleet to support the Fleet Department, is now over in that department. So it's been an opening, and they'd like to take that resources for that position, that .75 position, and change that into 4.28 seasonal apprentice operators. And that's to address their needs in the summer. That's when the busier time is with the grass mowing, weed eating, trimming, and just when a lot of the regular staff like to take vacations. So to provide support there for those services. So that would result in an additional 0.37 FTE overall for them. But because these are seasonal positions or shorter time period, the city would still pay the FICA and Medicare benefits for that matching benefits, but the city would not be paying loggers, retirement, or health benefits. So overall, there'd be a savings of about $6,000 to $7,000 to the city by making that change. And plus, to get us additional support for our, the apprentice operators in the field. So if you have any questions, I'd be glad to address, or staff is here available to respond.
Does anybody have any questions on those changes, on those adjustments? I don't have any questions either. I completely understand it, so there's nothing to ask, but I would look for a motion then.
Chair?
Oh, excuse me.
Oh, go ahead.
Councilmember Shields, are you okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you're good. I move to recommend to City Council approval of Bill number 23-087, an ordinance approving amendment number 15 to the budget for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2023, as adopted by ordinance number 9441, ordinance number 9442, ordinance number 9449, ordinance number 9450, and ordinance number 9451 by amending the full-time equivalents for ITS, Fire, Public Works, and Finance in the pay and classification plan for the city.
Second.
Thank you. I have a motion by Councilmember Hodges, a second by Mayor Pro Tem Lopez, moving Bill number 23-087 to the full council with a recommendation of approval. Any discussion? Seeing none. Roll call, please.
Mayor Pro Tem Lopez?
Aye.
Councilmember Hodges?
Aye.
Councilmember Shields?
Aye.
Chairman Demaro?
Aye. Thank you. That's 4 ayes. Next up, Bill number 23-088, an ordinance approving the 2023 Combat Drug Commission, LESBI, agreement by and between the City of Lee Summit, Missouri and Jackson County, Missouri, and authorizing the mayor to execute the same by and on behalf of the city. Captain Michael Finn. Michael Irvin, not Michael Finn. Sorry.
Thank you. Captain Michael Irvin, Lee Summit Police Department, Administrative Division. So before you is a reoccurring annual agreement with Jackson County Combat that helps support law enforcement school-based initiatives. Currently, in partnership with the school district, we do DARE and our newly created IMPACT program. So this funding will go towards enhancing the general fund to help offset some of those costs for these programs. I can get into more specifics if anyone has any questions.
This is a good thing.
Absolutely.
It is. Very good thing, yes. Yeah, I think it speaks for itself that it's, you know, the impact and DARE programs are very, very worthwhile in any community, especially our community. So I would ask
Chair?
for a motion. Yeah, Council.
She's on a roll.
I move to recommend to City Council approval of Bill number 23-088, an ordinance approving the 2023 Combat Drug Commission, LESBI, agreement by and between the City of Lee Summit, Missouri and Jackson County, Missouri, and authorizing the mayor to execute the same by and on behalf of the city.
Second.
Thank you. I have a motion by Councilmember Hodges, a second by Mayor Pro Tem Lopez, moving Bill number 23-088 to the full council with a recommendation of approval. Discussion, none. Roll call, please.
Mayor Pro Tem Lopez?
Aye.
Councilmember Hodges?
Aye.
Councilmember Shields?
Aye.
Chairperson Demaro?
Thank you. Aye. Thank you. That's 4 ayes, moving Bill number 23-088 to full council. Next up, 2023-5503, General Fund and Public Safety Sales Tax Revenue Projections for FY24. This is the good stuff. Good afternoon, Eric.
Good afternoon. Eric Stoyanov, Budget Manager. So this afternoon, we're going to talk about the FY24 General Fund and Public Safety Sales Tax Forecast. We'll start with kind of the main tax revenues, dive a little bit deeper into those before finishing up with the other taxes and where we set total, and then the public safety sales tax. So we'll start off with property tax. And so this category consists of Jackson County and Cass County property taxes, Cass County and Jackson County railroad taxes, the replacement tax, and the pilots. We've seen assessed valuations go up, but for levy setting purposes, we're capped at that 5%. And so this forecast takes in that 5% growth to get to that FY24 projection off of where we sit currently. So we've been seeing healthy growth there. And again, stop me at any time if you have any questions about any of these. So sales tax, this one's been the one that's a little more challenging to nail down exactly, but so far we're about 7% up year to date with our sales tax revenues. We've been seeing consistent growth. Use tax is a little bit more up and down. Some months we see really good growth, some months we don't. We've had 2 months in a row of negative amounts, so we're kind of looking into whether that's a trend or what's happening there, if that links to discretionary spending or what, because I know there's still a lot of talk about recessionary impacts and economic updates that say spending could cool down, even though it's still high as of right now. So those two are ones that we're really keeping a close eye on. As far as sales tax goes, we're being conservative and estimating about a 3% jump from where we project to end FY23. Same with the use tax. We started off really high with our use tax and saw really good growth, but it seems to be leveling off a little bit, and that's why that 3% number feels like a pretty good number to use for this year. And then as you'll see too, the marijuana tax that was recently passed, that extra 3%. We only have 1 month of data as of right now for recreational sales, and so this number is hard to get an exact read on. Medical marijuana sales have been remarkably consistent, but with only that 1 month of data, we don't know if there was an initial surge because people were just excited about it being legalized or what happened there. So that's one we're going to be keeping a very close eye on, but based on what we've been seeing, we felt it was in the range of 250,000 to 400,000. This lands right there in the middle, but one of those numbers that we're going to be keeping a close eye as more data continues to roll in. But we do that with all of our sales tax numbers because things fluctuate from month to month, and we want to make sure that we're on top of any trends that are beginning to develop. And this kind of puts it into historical perspective, going back to FY17 actuals up to the FY24 projection. As you can see here, the sales tax amount stays, it's got growth, but it stays pretty consistent with its growth. What's really helped contribute to a surge in our sales tax amounts is the new tax sources, the use tax and now the marijuana tax. But as you can see in the FY21 to 22, there was that big spike, but then 22 to 23 and then 23 to 24. It's kind of leveling off a little bit with the use tax as more retailers have jumped on board with that. So still seeing good growth overall, but it's not the exponential growth we saw in the first year of the use tax as it came online. And so here's our franchise tax. This category is made up of natural gas, telephone, electric, and cable. Natural gas, as you've all experienced, has been extremely high right now. Our revenues for FY23 are up 37% year to date. We're still expecting good growth in FY24, but not nearly that high. So we cooled things off a little bit. Our projection's about 8% up based on where we expect to end FY23. Telephone's one of those categories where we've been consistently declining, and we expect that trend to continue. Electric is kind of same as natural gas. Those both fluctuate on weather conditions, and electric's been up, but not nearly as much as what we've seen in the natural gas area. And so still a little bit of growth there. And then cable is one that we've seen a real big hit to. We lost Google Fiber TV, which was a big contributor. We got a pretty decent size every quarter, and now we've lost them now that they're YouTube TV. And so that's kind of what caused that FY23 budget to where we sit currently and the projection for next year to drop so much. And so 14.2 is about what we expect in that category. And again, putting things a little bit into perspective, as you can see, on the left side, the natural gas has risen consistently, electric same way, but telephone and cable have just dropped, and it's caused us to kind of level out. And one of the reasons why our FY '24 projection is just a little down from where we expect it to end in FY '23. But going back to FY '18, we've seen negative years before. We've seen more negative years than positive years. So that is the franchise. Motor vehicle. Again, this one's consistent of fuel tax, sales tax, and then the license. Fuel tax with Missouri continuing to raise the gas tax. We expect that growth to continue in that category, and we've seen a big spike this year. Sales tax was a little bit of one that was harder. As you know, with rising interest rates, it makes the cost of borrowing higher, and so expect that to be seen in some of those higher purchase areas like homes, which we've seen in car sales. And so we expect that to level a little bit out compared to what we've seen in FY '23. Motor vehicle license has stayed pretty consistent with its growth rate around 5% over the past 5 or 6 years. And again, just a little bit of a historical perspective. As you can see, beginning in FY '21, we started seeing the fuel tax really go up, and this past year, it's gone up with the fuel tax rising. Motor vehicle sales tax is really where we see a lot of that fluctuation. It just, some years we're up, some years we're down, so it's just hard to nail down exactly. Motor vehicle license fee is pretty consistent, but with rising rates, we feel pretty comfortable with where our sales tax forecast is. And then rounding out the tax category are other taxes. And so this is cigarette tax and the intangible tax. Cigarette tax, it's kind of 5% drop every year over the past 5 or 6 years. It's pretty consistent, which is what we're going with our forecast. The intangible tax is the tax on like savings bonds and stocks and those intangible items. And so that one, it fluctuates wildly. There's no real discernible trend. Some years we've seen 220,000, some years we've seen 20,000, and so there's no trend up or down really. And so that one is our best guess of what we've seen in recent years of the 45,000. So it's hard to nail that one down exactly. And here you can see FY '20 and FY '21, we see that massive spike in the other taxes. That's a direct result of the intangible tax jumping up significantly from around 30,000 to 90,000 in FY '20, and then 200 and something thousand in FY '21. But then it started to come back down to reality and where we've seen it more consistently. And this is where we've seen our other tax kind of year-over-year percentage changes. And so that wraps up the tax, so I'll stop for a second and see if you guys had any questions on the tax category aspects.
Any questions from the council? Eric, I do have a question. Of course, I'm like anybody else. I see a lot of the temp tags on cars and realizing the sales tax on that vehicle is not being captured. Do we have any idea, and this, of course, is a question out there in left field, do we have any idea of how much we're actually losing because people don't go ahead and register their cars?
I don't have a good answer for that one.
We really don't have any way of tracking that. Until the tax is paid, there's no data available to us to be able to evaluate that question.
Yeah, that's what I figured, but I just thought I would ask just in case you have any feedback. But of course, and that goes to say that the incoming taxes, we do have audit procedures, especially like for the use tax and anything that has, nexus to the state of Missouri. And we double check that just in case anybody's listening. We do take it serious, but it's some things are out of our control. Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
Mr. Chair, just to
Yes,
piggyback on your
President.
question, I could understand why Eric's department probably wouldn't track that type of information, but maybe the police department on traffic stops, or is that something that you all have noticed any trends on when you stop people for traffic violations?
John Bunker, Deputy Chief of the Police Department. That's tough to quantify. Just traffic in general has increased in Lee Summit, so to break it down into registered, not registered, I think we all can agree that we're seeing tags that are expired way longer. But I think COVID had a part of that. If you recall, there was a grace period given where there was no registration that was required, and so catching up following COVID, and I think could be an example or an explanation for that, but overall, it's tough to quantify.
Sure it is. Thank you, Assistant Chief. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? All right, well, thank you, Eric. Keep on going.
So now we'll get into our other revenue category. This one makes up about 20% of our remaining revenues. So we have the fines and forfeitures, licenses and permits, intergovernmental charges for service. And so this is kind of a high-level look. Most of these were based off of 2 or 3 year averages, department data. Most of them are in line with what we've seen in previous years. The one area where we are noticing a drop is the licenses and permits. Basically, anything that's been related to residential has been slashed as those developments aren't happening as frequently. And so that's gone down considerably based on historical trends. And then our total investment earnings is a much larger number than what we've had recently. But with rising rates, the value of our current portfolio has dropped as we have to do mark-to-market. And so that's the reason for the larger number in the investment earnings section. In a little bit of a look at historical trends, basically since FY20, we've been hovering between that 19 to $20.5 million range, and we're in that range again for this year. And who knows, if rates start to drop, we could see more single-family developments start to come online, but it's just hard to tell at this point. And so here's the recap, the total revenue. And so adding all of those together, we come out to a revenue figure for the general fund for FY24 of $94.67 million. So up about 1.2% over where we expect to end FY23, which, looking back, I think over the past 12 fiscal years, about a third of them have been under 2% for growth for total revenues. So we've seen some higher amounts recently, but this one, we expect decent growth, but not the exponential growth we've been seeing in some years. So that wraps up the general fund portion. Do you guys have any questions about, I guess, the total revenue figure and the other tax category?
Any other questions? Scaling back to the marijuana tax, that will start actually being reported and collected in October of 2023. Is that correct?
Yep, and we will receive our first distribution December.
Till December. Okay. I just want to be sure people heard that. So. All right, Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Eric, I do have a question regarding sales tax. I mean, I've served on this committee for a few years, and pre and post and during and post COVID. I think we were always pretty proud of the fact about staying to support local businesses, and our sales trends we're moving upward consistently for this period. Are we starting to see some kind of a leveling off of sales taxes per se?
I wouldn't say a leveling off. I'd say a little bit of a leveling off in the use tax section. Think sales tax overall, we've still been growing. I know, for example, year-to-year trends, but in the total sales tax category, we're typically up around 4% from FY17 to 18, 18 to 19, but really in FY21 was when things changed, and we saw a 17% jump in that sales tax category, followed by a 22% jump the following year. But a lot of that was due to use tax coming online. And so this year, total, we're seeing about 6%, which is still above where we've been over the past few years. But it's yeah, it's not as high as like the 17 and 22%, but I think a lot of that could be categorized of retailers getting online with the use tax more than just growth.
Kind of adjusting a little bit.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. All right, thank you, appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And this kind of shows the year-over-year change from where we expect the FY '24 to be from FY '23. So you can see sales tax, we still expect it to grow just under 4% as a category as a whole. And so, yeah, property tax, we're seeing growth, sales tax, we're seeing growth, and motor vehicle, but those franchise taxes and then that other tax is kind of where we're seeing declines, and in the other revenue primarily for the reasons we laid out.
Okay. Well, thank you. Are there any other questions by chance? Thank you, Eric. Appreciate it.
Yeah, and then I'll finish up with the public safety sales tax. And so for the public safety sales tax projection, we basically looked at the trends for the capital improvement tax, since it's the same 0.5%. In looking at that, we realized it's not exactly one-to-one, because some of the sales tax that we receive for capital improvements is from prior periods that are catch-up payments, and so it's not gonna be 100% the same, but about 90 to 95% it should be the same. So that's how we came up with this projection, was basing it off of those trends. And so for the sales tax portion of the public safety sales tax, we're expecting 11.2 million. For the use tax portion, we're expecting 2.1 million. So a total 13.3 for FY '24 out of the public safety sales tax.
That's a good number. That's a good number, yeah. Okay, I would ask once again, any questions? All right, Eric. Thank you.
Yeah.
That leads us into roundtable. Anybody have any?
Mr. Chair, can someone just update us on the schedule going forward regarding budget planning and kind of what the time frame, game plan is?
Yes, I can bring up our budget calendar. So we do have a Finance and Budget Committee meeting scheduled for Monday, May 1st at 4 p.m. This is our regularly scheduled meeting. There will be any regular business conducted during that meeting. Then we also have a special meeting scheduled for May 15th, another Monday. And at this meeting, this is where it's anticipated that the city manager will present his information regarding general fund and public safety sales tax, as well as expansion requests. Then, excuse me, per law, we will need to publish our public hearing notice in the local newspaper on May 27th, on Saturday. Following that, we will have a Finance and Budget Committee meeting June 5th, and during that meeting, we expect that there will be a presentation by probably myself and the city manager of all departments and fund budgets. So that will be the overview of everything. Then again, the public hearing will be scheduled for June 13th, and the second reading on June 20th, with hopefully approval at that time.
Thank you, Betty. And that was the 15th that we'll have the city manager and the expansion items, right? 15th of May.
Yes, you're correct.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Rucker, I have a question for you. And that is, the last Finance and Budget meeting, I was talking about the business licenses and what's the possibility that the increase in the actual overall business tax fee, and I just want, and you were going to go back and look at information, you were going to check with, I believe, Development Services. Do you have any update on that, or anything you want to share, in other words?
Yes, Josh Johnson and I prepared and forwarded a little analysis of this. Basically, I think you run afoul of Hancock, okay? The Hancock Amendment of the Constitution. You would have to go to the voters to approve an increase of the business license fee. Currently, you make, in fact, a small profit on the business license fee. Our cost to administer the program is in fact less than the revenue the program generates. Hancock is essentially it doesn't say this, isn't that many words, but it's a revenue lid, okay? It requires that if you want to increase something, you have to go to the voters if you're going to just use it for general purposes, okay? If we could posit a fee that we have let's take a development fee. A development fee where we know that it now costs us $300 an hour to get a qualified nuclear engineer to approve something, okay? We can add that fee in and get that fee raised without going back to the voters. On the business license fee, there really isn't much the city does. One of the things the cities don't do, okay, with business licenses is they don't provide ongoing extra services in response to the fee. The whole key behind a business license is generally to make sure that we know that these guys have their sales tax number from State Department of Revenue so that every entity entitled to a sales tax picks up the money. That's the general purpose. Otherwise, there's no ancillary services cities provide just because you got a business license. So basically, the answer is, I don't think you qualify under the Keller test, the Keller versus Marion County Ambulance, to weigh the 5 factors to increase the fee without going to the voters.
Okay.
So that's a long, wordy way of saying, please don't.
No, that's very appreciative, and you know, I think that's what we thought it was going to come out. It just, there's not enough going on there. So the only other method, the only other avenue would be to go after the penalty, maybe enhance the penalties for more compliance.
Certainly. And Josh Johnson was able to find for me, I did not find it myself, in our Code of Ordinances, there is a small section titled Prerequisites to Doing Business. I would personally title it Business License Required, okay? It is a criminal penalty. I talked to Abby Pinnell. She is willing to prosecute further cases on this. Generally, prosecutions of these kinds of codes cases come in 2 ways. They're either a complaint-based system where somebody says, hey, so-and-so's not doing what they're supposed to do, or it's an ongoing systematic inspection. It's up to management how they're going to put that together. But prosecutor's office, from what Abby said, they're ready to prosecute. If there are more cases to be brought to them, that's fine. One of the things that requires, though, is we require an actual evidence. And the evidence for this, I used to prosecute this in Kansas City and in Osage Beach. The evidence can get tricky because you need to put a notice. You want a reasonable finder of fact to give you a conviction. You got to give a guy an opportunity to correct his conduct. It's sort of like when you do a speeding ticket. One of the things I'll always ask a speeding ticket, I'll ask the officer, was the speed limit clearly posted that day? Okay, and the officer says, yes, it said 45 miles an hour. I got you doing 60. We got him, okay? Again, we need to give a notice, okay? Then we need to show that you were actually in business on the day we charged. We can't just say that. We need to put an inspector in there to say, yes, we saw him sell a bag of potato chips that day. Now, once we get that quantum of evidence, then we're good to go. I would add, however, that for those people who are repeat offenders, and anybody who may be listening out there in internet land, if you are a repeat offender, every day is a continuing violation. And under your general range of penalties, that can be up to a $500 fine. In my experience in court, you're not going to get judges to give you $500 fines on the first violation or the second violation, but eventually you get some miscreant who won't cooperate at all. Yes, I've gotten $500 fines on this. Right now, I think you're at a complaint-based system. If there are complaints to go there, I believe they go to Development Services and they can run it down. But we're, the Law Department and Abby Pinnell as our prosecutor are more than willing to help them put those cases together.
Okay, all right, well, thank you. I appreciate the the summary. I do, yeah. Is there anybody, is Ryan here? There's Ryan. You knew I was going to call on you, didn't you? And basically, while you're making your way up, my question is going to be, under the proactive code enforcement, is this going to be one thing we do look at, or is this would we just happen into it maybe at a certain time?
Good evening or afternoon. Ryan Elam, Assistant City Manager. Yes, as part of the proactive code enforcement change, we have started proactively reaching out to different businesses that are in the grid of that time. And I know that there was an increase in compliance related to the proactive movement. I don't know the exact numbers on that, but I know that we have those available. Can I stand up here and say that we hit every business? I'm not entirely sure about that, but I do know that there was an increase through the proactive efforts, and that is a practice that's going to continue.
Okay, all right, thank you. Thank you very much. Well, at this time, for the committee, maybe in the future, maybe next meeting or when we get through the budget, maybe we pick up this subject again and reserve the time to talk about maybe increasing penalties and just as another, push for business owners. We have compliance with a lot of business owners, and we don't have compliance with others, and it's sort of not fair. So maybe in the future, we'll pick it up again if anybody's got any comments on that and talk about maybe increasing penalties in the future. Okay, all right, thank you. All right, any other roundtable from you guys? You guys have roundtable? No roundtable?
Nope.
Anybody in the audience? Everybody's tired. Okay, well. Huh? Oh, yeah, I see her. Well, no more roundtable, then I'll call this meeting adjourned. Thank you very much.